So in this one, this is essentially a parody of various Western films. The film's title obviously is a takeoff of The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. We have Huckleberry Hound constantly referred to as a mysterious, steely-eyed, and silent-type stranger, though Huck is just being himself, spoofing the Western stock characters of the man with no name. Several other plot points are taken from other Westerns like High Noon, High Plains Drifter, and notable because it marks the final time Doss Butler plays all the characters that he's known for. Huckleberry Hound, Quick Draw McGraw, Yogi Bear, Snagglepuss, Peter Potamus, Hooky Wolf. He actually died 3 days after this aired on TV from a heart attack. And it's the only movie where he is the main character instead of Yogi, although it also stars Dickie Dalton from Laugh Olympics. And, you know, it was a movie that I went into with a lot of trepidations. I'm not really much of a Huckleberry Hound fan in general. He never really was a fully realized character that you could put a full movie on, but, movie actually did work kind of well. It's a fun little film in general. I think the animation is probably the best overall that I've seen from the Superstars 10 movies. It does take a lot of plot points from various Westerns and works with it pretty well. You get a lot of good solid voice work from Butler in particular, which is, like I said, it's his last movie before his death. Not a masterpiece by any means, but a very fun and enjoyable little animated film that knows what it's satirizing and makes it work. The writing's well intended and clearly well written. The voice work's pretty good. The animation's pretty good. Fun movie in general. Not a classic by any means, but fun film nonetheless. So let's take a little step aside from the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 for just a little bit here to take a look at some more memorable films from '88. Some for the good, some for the bad, and now we'll start off with the good one. The cult classic Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
Got problems with your ghoul friend? Not getting enough exercise? Who you gonna duck call?
Oh, Rotor.
Try again.
Daffy Duck's the name. The Supernatural's my game.
It's Daffy, Bugs, Porky, Sylvester, and Tweety.
You bad old pudding cat. A veritable paragon of wholesome family entertainment.
Daffy Duck's Quackbusters, a new animated feature from Warner Brothers. It's everything it's cracked up to be.
I don't think there really was a trailer out there for this movie when it was in theaters, but you get the idea here. Daffy Duck's Quackbusters. This was the last of the Looney Tunes compilation films from the 1980s, actually beginning in 1979 with the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie. But in this film, this is another one of those movies that uses pre-existing music from older cartoons mixed in with the newer animation and classic footage. And in this movie, Daffy Duck actually becomes a millionaire after making a reclusive millionaire laugh out loud, and he decides to set up a paranormalist at large thing, kind of essentially a Ghostbusters type of job, where, you know, he's doing this because he's basically being haunted by the ghost of this millionaire, J.P. Cubage, and he somehow gets Bugs and Porky to be involved in this, and that leads into the classic cartoons that we have here. And I will say this. This is definitely one of the ones where you could tell where they tried their best to kind of sync up the older Looney Tunes cartoons and the newer Looney Tunes cartoons together, and it's the one that really does not work as well as it does. Yeah, Mel Blanc was great as Bugs Bunny, but and all the Looney Tunes characters. I keep saying Bugs Bunny, but he played many of the major Looney Tunes characters. But this is definitely the one where you could tell that they really had a hard time syncing the voices up to match the current Mel Blanc at that time to the older Mel Blanc in some of these cartoons, because there's a lot of times where it'll be the newer Mel Blanc voices coming out of Porky and Daffy. They'll be talking, and then all of a sudden it'll cut to the older cartoons, and all of a sudden they're like 40 years younger. Like they really, I don't think they really did as good of a job as I think they wanted to try to mesh them together here, and it really definitely shows this time around. But this is one of the times when you actually get to see some exclusive stuff. You get to see the Night of the Living Duck Show, which was an exclusive cartoon here where Daffy has a dream where he's a lounge singer for all these different ghosts, and he sings in creatures of the night, and you have him doing the voice of Mel Torme with a singing voice, and it's a great cartoon in general, which unfortunately is very hard to find online. It's not on YouTube anymore. You really have to search for it. But you also have The Duxorcist, which was originally an exclusive short that was released in front of a movie called Nuts with Barbra Streisand and Richard Dreyfuss, was as an independent visual short, but then was put back into this particular movie. But then you got stuff like Daffy Dilly, The Price Pass, Hide and Go Tweet, Water Every Hair. Basically cartoons that were that have somewhat of a supernatural feel to it, because this is basically a Ghostbusters Looney Tunes-esque type film, and this was notable for being the last major production that Mel Blanc was involved in, because he died in July of '89, and before this it was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where that time they did a good job of meshing the younger Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck voices from Mel Blanc in general, and it didn't feel distracting. This one definitely feels very distracting, but it's fun for what it is. I mean, it's a cool idea to have a Ghostbusters-style Looney Tunes movie, even if it is using a lot of classic cartoons in general. And, yeah, some of the newer cartoons are really funny in here, but again, it's definitely very noticeable to have, like, the older voices meshed in with the new voices. I just really felt like they didn't really have... This really feel like it came together at the last minute. Like, you know, they saw how successful Ghostbusters was, they saw how successful Who Framed Roger Rabbit was, and Warner Brothers said, get as many animators as you can. We got to release this within 2 months of Roger Rabbit's release, because this came out 2 months after Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out. So I debate whether or not this was actually intended to be something, or they just made it because Roger Rabbit was going to be a success. But that's fun for what it is. I remember watching it as a kid and having a good time with it. So yeah, not much more to add about that one. Fine for what it is. It's Daffy Duck's Quackbusters. It's the Looney Tunes. It's back when Warner Brothers actually gave a shit about the Looney Tunes and wasn't trying to hide their films like they're doing right now with Coyote vs. Acme. But I digress. Let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is Kathy Ireland in the Canon Films comedy Alien from L.A.
Attention, attention, all citizens of the underground empire of Atlantis. We have reason to believe that our city is under invasion by an alien from a strange world called Los Angeles. Any invasion by aliens is counterproductive to the future of our great city-state.
Meet Wanda, a typical California girl who took a very untypical trip to Africa and found herself on a journey downward through a bottomless pit that led to the center of the earth.
Where are you from? From out of town. It's dangerous for strangers in Atlantis. People get kidnapped.
Wanda has found the adventure of a lifetime and the romance of her dreams. If only she can live through it.
Find this girl and lots of lotto money will be yours. It's you! I run! There she is! Hey! Stop!
Kathy Ireland is Wanda, and Wanda is the alien from L.A.
I guess technically it's not really a comedy. It was sold as a sci-fi film, but come on, man, it's a comedy. It's a weird movie. It's a crazy movie, or as Kathy Ireland says in the movie, thanks to MST3K,
Crazy.
Crazy? What the hell does that mean?
it's one of those type of movies. You have Kathy Ireland as a young woman who visits the underground civilization of Atlantis. And that's literally the plot of the movie. It's a film loosely based on Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth, with a lot of allusions to The Wizard of Oz as well. And it is pretty much what you expect from a movie like this, especially from Canon. But for a Canon movie, it's definitely one of the more fun ones. And I think that Kathy Ireland knew exactly what kind of a movie she was in, because really she was having the time of her life making this movie. And you could tell watching this film. It is not a good movie in terms of a story and all that, but it's just a fun movie for how they just say, let's just go over the top with it, let's have a good time with it, and the movie speaks for itself. It's a movie that is really ridiculous. It's so lazily put together. The visual effects are really, really lazy, but like I said, everyone feels like they're having a great time with it. They're having the time of their life, and they're just like, you know what? We know it's a bad movie, but we're going to have fun with it as well. This is directed by Albert Puyen, who did The Sword and the Sorcerer, and would later do the 1990 Captain America movie, which again is fun for not being the best movie in general, but it is a guilty pleasure type of film. This is exactly the type of a guilty pleasure film that you expect from a film like this. It's ridiculous, it's stupid, but they are fully in on the joke, and they're having a good time with it, so we have a good time with it as well. It's a fun film. It's a Canon film. What more can you expect? So, yeah, that's a movie that's intentionally supposed to be bad, it feels like. Here's a movie that is bad, that I don't think they were intentionally expecting to be bad. Pound Puppies, in their first big movie, The Legend of Big Paw.
It's the Pound Puppies,
in their first animated movie.
I love Pound Puppy.
And they've got puppy power.
How do I get puppy power?
This old bone is the bone of Scone.
Puppy power! Without the bone of Scone, we wouldn't be able to talk with all of you. Anyway, that's how they got it?
That's right. Now you'll be mine.
Rush!
First, I'll take over the pound, and then the country, and then the world!
That trailer is one of the most unintentionally hilariously bad trailers ever. I mean, talk about exploiting children and telling them, talk about this movie. I didn't get to show you the whole thing, but man, watch the whole trailer for that because it is hilariously bad. And this movie has a murder history behind it, believe it or not. The man who plays Marvin McNasty, the villain in this, that should be warning sign right there, George Rose, his adopted son and 3 other men beat him to death when this movie came out in May of 1988. And then a year later, Jose Menendez, who was one of the executives in charge of the production for the film, was also murdered by his 2 sons over a year after Rose's death. So yeah, this movie has 2 people that got killed because of it. There's a body bag count for this, and you wouldn't expect that from a movie like Pound Puppies, The Legend of Big Paw. And as crazy as that is, the plot for this is incredibly crazy as well. On a magical artifact called the Bone of Scone, which goes back to the times of King Arthur and Excalibur, that gives puppy power to the Pound Puppies and Pound Purries. However, a villain named Marvin McNasty plans to take it and use it for world domination. Without the Bone of Scone, humans will not understand what the animals are saying, and if it's broken, puppy power will forever be lost. So essentially, it's just like life right now. I can't talk to my dog can't talk to me, my cat can't talk to me, I can't talk to my cat. So the world essentially goes on, and yeah, this is really stupid. I mean, for a movie even for a movie like Pound Puppies, this is incredibly, incredibly stupid. Like, I would say that your kids can watch it and have a good time with it, but even your kids would watch this and go like, why the fuck did you insult my intelligence, Mom, with this garbage? Because that's exactly what this movie is doing. It's insulting your intelligence. It's a movie that is so ridiculously stupid, and it's amazing the levels that this film goes to just be nothing but a movie that you just sit down with, you plop it down in front of your kids, you do something else, and then they watch it, and then they regret ever speaking to you for the rest of your life because of it. I don't know if they actually do that, but yeah, by the way, this is actually a movie based off the TV show, because if you remember the 80s TV show, clearly these are all the characters that we remember from the show. The mother and the daughter who ran the Pound in the TV series, nowhere to be found in here. It's the same characters from the movie as from the TV show in the movie, but it's a completely different thing altogether. This whole movie is an unbelievable mess of a movie, man. This is just a terrible, terrible movie. Like, the Care Bears movies are more dignified than this. The Care Bears movies. Think about that for a second. I'll wait. And, yeah. There's nothing about this movie that is worth it. Except maybe the animation, which is good, I guess. But then again, that's really not saying a whole lot. This is a really bad movie, man. This is a film that just really was one of those movies that's just like, what the hell were you thinking when you made this film? I know what they're thinking of. Cold hard cash. And unfortunately, that didn't do that, because this thing bombed pretty hard. At a $6 million budget and only brought in $500,000. So, yeah, not the best way to celebrate this movie's success. But yeah. So, how about we get to some good animated movies, or at least some better animated movies than Pound Puppies and The Legend of Big Paw. We have a couple of films from the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 here. They're spread throughout here in general, but let's start off with the first one I have here, Top Cat and the Beverly Hills Cats.
Cat moves uptown to Beverly Hills.
I hereby name as my sole beneficiary, Mr. Benjamin Ball. That's our Benny. It's your rags to riches story. But in the event that anything unforeseen happens to Mr. Ball, the entire estate reverts to snugly at his faithful bed.
Top Cat and the Beverly Hills Cats.
One thing about Beverly Hills, when they try to terminate you, they do it with class.
Maybe not as better as Pound Puppies, but at least it's more tolerable than Pound Puppies, at least. Top Cat and the Beverly Hills Cats, of course, was one of the many movies from the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10. The plot is essentially in a remake of a couple of episodes from the show, where you have this Beverly Hills do-wagger who leaves everything to Betty the Ball, but because her only rightful heir, her niece Amy, is missing. But that's only if Betty stays alive for 48 hours. If not, the evil butler Snurdly and his mad Russian wolfhound, which are pretty much Dick Dastardly and Muttley. I mean, come on, it's literally the same characters. Just change the design of Dick Dastardly and make this dog a wolfhound instead of whatever breed Muttley is. It's the same damn characters. And he's quick to pull out every trick in the book to do poor Benny in, and the troop sets out to rescue Benny and find their lost heir, Amy. So it's a little bit of Aristocats in there, too. And yeah, it's a retread of stuff we've seen done before, but unlike something like Yogi's Great Escape, which was kind of basically a retread of Hey There, It's Yogi Bear, which we'll get to that one in 87, it's a pretty, I mean, this one's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, yeah, I watched this one not too long ago. It wasn't that bad, honestly. I mean, maybe it's because I haven't watched the original Top Cat series in ages, and I'm just getting reacquainted with the series through this movie. I've never seen the two recent movies, and maybe it's probably good that I haven't, because, yeah, this is, those recent films are not that great in general, but, this movie is just okay for what it is. Overall, the animation was kind of good. The voice work still works pretty solid overall after over 20 years since the end of the show. You know, everybody still does sound the same for the most part. It's a decent story. Sometimes the comedy gets a couple of good laughs here and there. Nothing too spectacular, just your typical standard stuff. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing spectacular, nothing special. It's a more enjoyable film that I think people would want on for it, so. And another movie that's kind of similar to that, The Good, the Bad, and the Huckleberry Hound.
Hound is out to clean up the town of Cupid, California, and he's got the evil Dalton gang in his sights. Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater presents The Good, the Bad, and Huckleberry Hound.
So in this one, this is essentially a parody of various Western films. The film's title, obviously, is a takeoff of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. We have Huckleberry Hound constantly referred to as a mysterious, steely-eyed, and silent-type stranger, though Huck is just being himself, spoofing the Western stock characters of the man with no name. Several other plot points are taken from other Westerns like High Noon, High Plains Drifter, and notable because it marks the final time Dawes Butler plays all the characters that he's known for: Huckleberry Hound, Quick Draw McGraw, Yogi Bear, Snagglepuss, Peter Potamus, Hooky Wolf. He actually died 3 days after this aired on TV from a heart attack. And it's the only movie where he is the main character instead of Yogi, although it also stars Dickie Dalton from Laugh Olympics. And, you know, it was a movie that I went into with a lot of trepidations. I'm not really much of a Huckleberry Hound fan in general. He never really was a fully realized character that you could put a full movie on, but, movie actually did work kind of well. It's a fun little film in general. I think the animation is probably the best overall that I've seen from the Superstars 10 movies. It does take a lot of plot points from various Westerns and works with it pretty well. You get a lot of good solid voice work from Butler in particular, which is, like I said, it's his last movie before his death. Not a masterpiece by any means, but a very fun and enjoyable little animated film that knows what it's satirizing and makes it work. The writing's well intended and clearly well written. The voice work's pretty good. The animation's pretty good. Fun movie in general. Not a classic by any means, but fun film nonetheless. So let's take a little step aside from the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 for just a little bit here to take a look at some more memorable films from '88. Some for the good, some for the bad, and now we'll start off with the good one. The cult classic Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
Where do they come from? Why are they here? Why? Wow. You laughed your head off. Killer Klowns from Outer Space. It's crazy. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, May 20th at a theater near you.
So yeah, if you've been to Spirit Halloween over the last couple of years, you have definitely seen a lot of stuff from Killer Klowns from Outer Space. In fact, surprisingly, I did not know that the Chiodo brothers actually made this movie, and I remember them they also did the work for The Simpsons whenever they did the Christmas episode where they did like the parody of the Muppet Show. They did the puppets for that. I had no idea until recently, and I thought that was kind of cool. In the film, as you can tell, you have evil extraterrestrials who resemble clowns arriving on Earth and invading a small town in order to capture, kill, and harvest the human inhabitants to use as sustenance. And this film did eventually go on to become a cult classic. Like I said, you see it everywhere around Halloween. Spirit Halloween, if you go into their stores, they have had the Killer Klowns costumes and the animatronics there for the last couple of years. I guarantee you if I go there this year, they're going to be there as well. And again, kind of like with Alien from L.A., it's a movie that knows exactly what it is. It's not meant to be taken too seriously, but at the same time, it can get legitimately scary at times, man. Like John Vernon, who remember from the Dean of the Animal House, he plays a cop in this, and there's a scene where he gets like something on his neck from the clowns. I can't remember what it was, but I remember watching that for the first time. It's just like, that's legitimately terrifying, honestly. Like, you can't. It's a movie where you don't expect it to be as crazy and as ridiculous. You expect it to be crazy, but you don't expect it to be as scary as it is, because there are times when it does get legitimately terrifying. And in a comedy like this, it's just like this is a really fun movie, man. I mean, I don't really have to say too much more about it because it's a classic film that most people pretty much remember, but a ridiculously fun movie. Can be legitimately terrifying at times. There's a reason why it's a cult classic even after all these years. So, Killer Klowns from Outer Space. So let's go ahead and get to that other movie I was talking about, the one that did not have the lasting longevity to it, War Party.
The Battle of Milk River.
Looks like the real thing, Ben.
They were supposed to relive it, not refight it.
It killed Lewis!
Nothing's changed in 100 years.
So what we got is a mob chasing an unarmed bunch of kids.
This time, we just might win it. What's the then? War Party, rated R.
Starts Friday, September 29th in a theater near you.
So wait a minute, did Trey Parker and Matt Stone get the idea to do this in South Park 10 years later? I swear this exactly sounds like the same episode where, you know, Cartman tried to prove to Kyle that the Civil is to try to change the outcome of the Civil War, and like he took this Civil War reenactment to the next level by getting everybody drunk on schnapps liquor, and they went go around like attacking the U.S. in order to win the Civil War in general. I mean, this literally feels like that same movie, and I'm actually kind of surprised I did not realize that when I first saw the trailer for this. It's just like, this is literally the same plot as that episode of South Park, and great episode of all, but in this movie you have a group of reenactors attempting to stage a 100th anniversary battle between the U.S. Cavalry and the Blackfeet Indians. Racial hostiles and a real gun lead to some all-too-real casualties, and three young Blackfeet men are caught in the middle. The film follows their flight for I'm reading this off Wikipedia here, and I can't tell if this is supposed to be their fight for freedom or flight for freedom. I mean, this is... Let me see if this sounds right. The film follows their fight for freedom in the face of an angry community which has mistakenly blamed them for their violence. I think that's what they're supposed to mean here, but for some reason it says flight, like an airplane, like... And, all that so I could just tell you that... Yeah, this movie doesn't... South Park probably did this a whole lot better regardless, because... This movie feels like it's a film that could be really kind of offensive at times. Like it's a movie that seems a little too ridiculous for its own good. Maybe they're trying to get a good message out of here, something that could be seen as kind of an early statement for the world that we live in right now. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff in here that feels like it could be really offensive at times. It just feels like a film that has the best intentions, but just doesn't live up to what it's supposed to be actually doing. But I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen this one, but I remember it not being that great in general. So anyway, let's get back to the rest of the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 that we have here, starting with the Jetson spin-off film, Rockin' with Judy Jetson. Probably one of my overall favorite ones from the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10. It's the one I used to watch a lot as a kid because we had the videotape for it. This is actually the Jetsons' first first motion picture, if you don't include the crossover movie they did with the Flintstones, because this came 2 years before Jetsons the movie came out. And in this movie, you have George's disapproval. Despite that, Judy is totally into this intergalactic rock star, Sky Rocker, played by Rob Paulsen in here. And in fact, that's actually him doing the music for this. When the teen icon announces a surprise concert, Judy writes a super awesome song and sends it to him. And the song is accidentally switched with an evil magic message from a music-hating witch, Felonia Funk. And chaos and hilarity ensues, I guess. I wasn't kidding when they said that this does take me back, because this was a movie I used to watch on a number of different occasions. It was just one of those movies I used to watch numerous times. The songs in this movie are so damn catchy. I mean, Rockin' Around the Galaxy is a great song, but besides that, I mean, there's a lot of other great songs in there. You know, Gleep Glore, the song that Sky Rocker sings, is actually a pretty damn good song as well. The songs overall are really damn catchy in general, but does the rest of the movie kind of fare up? Pretty good, pretty much for the most part. It is one of the more enjoyable movies I've seen from this series of movies. It's not, like I said, like a lot of these movies, they're not perfect. It's a very cliched riddle story, and the new characters are kind of lame too, but it is still very fun to watch. It's very watchable and enjoyable, mostly if you like the Jetsons, and I like the Jetsons. And it is really odd that the first solo Jetsons movie to come out features, of all characters, Judy Jetson as the main focus of it. She's not really one of the show's well-defined characters, and for the most part, the story is about as cliche as you can get, where the new characters aren't exciting or interesting, especially the villain, who has a really lousy plan to take over the world that would even make Batman go, slow your roll. I hate music just as much as you do, but seriously, take it down a notch. Which, if you've never seen that Top the Fourth Wall episode where he reviews the Batman comic where he hates music, definitely seek that one out. That's where that joke came from. But, I mean, it's a very flawed movie, but it is one of those movies that has that nostalgic feel to it for me. I enjoy it for what it is. It's not a perfect movie by any means necessary, but it is. If you like the Jetsons, you'll probably really enjoy it a lot. I honestly think it is the better of the Jetsons movies, if you include the Jetsons movie from '90, and then the Robo WrestleMania movie, which is basically just a watered-down Space Jam. The Jetsons movie is kind of pretty much a mixed bag of a movie. Sometimes I go back and forth on that one. This one at least tries to stay in the tone of the reality that the show had set itself up, and it works for the most part. It's got a lot of catchy songs. It's memorable for that. Some pretty good animation overall. It's one of those ones that I do like watching a lot in terms of rewatchability. It's the one I always go back to a lot. It's the one that I do recommend checking it out. So, let's get to some Scooby-Doo movies, because we have two of them in 1988, starting with Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School.
To the Ghoul School, where the three newest teachers are about to meet Sabella, Winnie, Elsa, Phantasma, and Little Tanis, and with an evil witch lurking nearby, Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy are going to have to keep these ghoulish girls out of trouble or face their ferocious fathers. Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater presents Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, Saturday at 7.
There was a trilogy of Scooby-Doo movies where it was just Scooby, Shaggy, and Scrappy-Doo, and this is actually the second one of those movies after Scooby-Doo and the Boo Brothers, but we'll get to that one in '87. But in this movie, Scooby-Doo and the gang visit a haunted school, and after the girls are kidnapped, it's up to Scooby and the gang to save them. What the plot doesn't really tell you is that Shaggy has to basically teach a school for not just girls, but monster girls. I mean, it's a bizarre concept, but then again, maybe it is kind of both a blessing and a curse, because as formulaic as it gets, like I said with the other movies, this is a film that is actually kind of enjoyable for what it is. I mean, it does take a bizarre premise and somehow makes it work as well as it does here. There are definitely a lot of formulaic tropes in here in terms of the overall story, but it's never to the point where it feels like they're not even trying. There is at least an effort to create a unique and interesting story with these characters. The new characters they do introduce are very fun to watch in general, and it's really cool that they actually do get to come back in other various Scooby-Doo movies in general. But it'd be nice if they did something kind of like a 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, like when they did the sequel for that recently. it'd be nice to see them do something like that with those characters in a full-length featured film, and not just a movie where they show up in the background. Like, it'd be really cool to see what they can do with that. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty good movie. It's not as good as... It's definitely a lot better than something like The Blues Brothers, but it's a movie that works fine for what it is. It's nothing too extravagant, nothing too amazing, but a good, fun Scooby-Doo adventure in general. Now, what about the other Scooby-Doo adventure, Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf?
It's Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf. Look for it on video cassette and DVD. The werewolf has moved to Florida.
How dare he retire just before the Monster Road Rally?
And Dracula knows where to find a new werewolf fast.
Rally, a werewolf? Oh, no! Oh, no! I'm a werewolf!
Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf. It's a howling adventure full of mystery, monsters, and pizza.
Well, let's make like shovels and dig in.
Look for the DVD loaded.
The last of the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 movies, and actually the last one to feature Scrappy-Doo as a protagonist in the Scooby-Doo franchise, and he wouldn't appear in another Scooby-Doo thing until the live-action movie where they made him the bad guy. Interesting concept in here as well. I mean, Shaggy's turned into a werewolf, but it's not like a typical werewolf in the typical werewolf fashion. It's a movie where, like, he hiccups and then all of a sudden he becomes a werewolf. Like, it's a really weird movie in terms of how this is played out, and it's up to Scooby, Scrappy, and his girlfriend, who's introduced in here to kind of randomly, to help him win the contest. The contest being a race with a drag race with all these different other monsters. And every year all the classic Hollywood monsters, they get to Count Dracula's castle in Transylvania for the Monster Road Rally, an ultimate road race similar to Wacky Races, awarding the winner of the Monster of the Year award, as well as many other prizes only monsters would enjoy. And one prize, a trip to Hawaii, that none of the monsters won. I wonder which one Shaggy was going to get if he wins it. And it's a movie that is very, very odd in the story department. So there just so happens to be a book that so happens to have a picture of Shaggy as the next werewolf. And apparently he's really good at racing. And reading the whole plot synopsis of this movie should tell you everything you need to know about this train wreck of a movie. I mean, this is a pretty bad Scooby-Doo movie. I mean, even for a Scooby-Doo movie, this is pretty weak. The story makes no sense whatsoever. It's basically stealing the plot of Wacky Races, but adds monsters to it so it can fit into a Scooby-Doo movie. There's no effort given it to give this an edge or something that can make it stand out. It's very predictable. You can predict everything that's going to happen from the get-go. The only real thing that I can say is somewhat clever in this is the fact that, yeah, Shaggy gets the hiccups, and every time he does hiccup, he goes back and forth to being a human to a werewolf, which sounds ridiculous, but it's the only interesting thing I think they could have done here, honestly. The animation overall is about on par with the next movie we'll get to here, looking like a little more high quality than the later Superstars 10 movies do, which looks like a very digital... It's kind of like a digital type of feel. Like, you know how The Simpsons went from going from the hand-drawn stuff to digital animation in the early 2000s? It feels like kind of like that, but there aren't that many interesting characters. Shaggy's girlfriend's kind of bland in general. She never shows up in any other Scooby-Doo movie, so it makes her kind of pointless in here. Dracula's kind of a lame villain. Like, how do you make Dracula lame is beyond me. The climax of the movie has Dracula driving a weaponized car and then a plane. Why would he have a plane? It makes no sense. But then again, a lot of these movies makes no sense. Like, it says a lot when I can take Yogi Bear flying the Spruce Goose plane and Magical Flight of the Spruce Goose more seriously than I can do with Dracula flying a plane. And he's just a lame bad guy in general. Like, you can't even make Dracula as a badass villain in here. He's just kind of a lazy character in general. And it's just not a good movie, man. It's a very uneven movie. The plot makes no sense. The story is lame. The characters are lame. The villain is lame. There's a lot of uninspired animation. And it just doesn't work as well as a Scooby-Doo movie should be. I mean, Ghoul School, I think, is probably the best of those three movies that were coming out of the Superstars 10 in general. But this might be one of the worst Scooby-Doo movies ever, honestly. Despite some of the efforts of trying to do something unique and different with it, it's just not worth it in the end, so... let's get to that other movie from the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 I wanted to bring up here. Yogi and the Invasion of the Space Bears.
Celebrate summer with family picnics, outdoor activities, and invading bears from space.
Invading bears from space?
Summer gets interrupted for Yogi and Boo Boo.
You can say that again.
They have their paws full trying to steer clear of wacky aliens. An army of imposters. Hey, hey, hey. And Ranger Smith. Get that Yogi Bear! Will Yogi save the galaxy and his summer plans? Watch Yogi and the Invasion of the Space Bears, only on the Disney Channel.
Yeah, I bet you forgot that a lot of the Hanna-Barbera movies aired on the Disney Channel before Cartoon Network started airing those movies. Yeah. Kind of a weird time when it was pretty much cool to have Disney Channel, air Warner Brothers properties on there, because they had some Looney Tunes movies on there as well as other different movies from other studios, like Ghostbusters was on there at one point, but that's a whole other topic of discussion altogether. Let's talk about Yogi and the Invasion of the Space Bears, where you have the last performances by Dawes Butler as Yogi and Boo Boo, who go on this all out of this world voyage when they're kidnapped by spacemen that are cloned, and the clone bears start invading Jellystone Park. I mean, a fun concept in general, but kind of like with Scooby-Doo and the Electric Werewolf, they really don't do a whole lot with it, honestly, and it is kind of a generic bore of a movie. Like, the idea of multiple Yogi Bears in this one area should be a fun concept to work with here, but it's about as basic as it gets. The jokes are mostly kind of generic and stockpiled, and it really doesn't have a purpose for existing except to just have another Superstars 10 movie, to have the 10 movie number for this block of movies that they had here. Definitely one of the lesser movies. Not much more to really say about that one, unfortunately. But let's go ahead and end this list here finally on a real trip of a movie, and I mean the ultimate trip of a movie. Let's talk about the hilarity and the insanity that is Michael Jackson's Moonwalker.
He comes from a place beyond the stars, to take them to a world beyond their dreams. From his soul comes the music. From his heart comes the beat. Now, from the imagination of Michael Jackson comes a movie like no other. Michael Jackson. Nothing could prepare you for his movie. Moonwalker. It's written in the stars.
Yeah, Lorber probably will regret not ever putting this out on the big screen, because this was back when Michael Jackson was at his true peak, and this movie probably could have been a massive blockbuster hit when it came out because of how successful Michael Jackson was at the time. But maybe they probably saw the movie and realized, yeah, this is too crazy even for us. And so the movie has a lot of things going on in it, but let's talk about that history of why this didn't hit theaters. This was supposed to hit theaters. This was originally supposed to be released alongside of Michael Jackson's Bad album in 1987. Jackson was also embarking on the Bad World Tour, which was his first as a solo performer, and the film was supposed to be released by Warner Brothers in Christmas of '88, but they then decided to release the film straight to home video on my birthday, believe it or not, January 10th, 1989, just as the tour was finished. And his tour was supposed to finish sooner, but he had to postpone it because of vocal strains, so it went on until the last week of '89, and the film sold over 800,000 copies on video in 1989 by April of '89, and yeah, like I said, they probably regretted putting this out in video instead of putting it out in theaters, because man, this would have been a massive hit in theaters. And so it's a movie that has become very hard to find on most DVDs and Blu-rays, mostly here in the U.S. because it has never been officially released on DVD or Blu-ray. I was lucky enough to find a bootleg copy of the UK import version of the film, and it still works. Like, it works about as good as a regular American DVD release in general. And so I have a copy of the movie, and I'm kind of glad I do have a copy of the movie, because there's a lot of things about this movie I actually do kind of really enjoy about it. But the plot of the movie is that it's just randomness, pretty much. Like I said at the beginning of the year with the Jennifer Lopez This Is Me Now movie, she probably saw Michael Jackson's Moonwalker and said, I want to make a movie as chaotic as that, because this movie literally is like that. I mean, this is a movie that starts off with the Man in the Mirror music video. It then changes into a montage of video clips from Michael's career. Then there's a parody of his Bad video where he's replaced by children. Then he's chased by fans in a fantasy segment with Will Vinton claymation. There's 2 more music videos added in here, then a movie in which Michael plays a hero with magical powers and the bad guy is a drug dealer named Mr. Big, played by Joe Pesci, and he has to save 3 children. And then there's videos including Smooth Criminal and Come Together. I mean, this is a chaotic movie. And it was clearly supposed to be for Michael Jackson what Purple Rain was for Prince. But Purple Rain succeeded more because it told a story and mixed in the music video elements that worked to Prince's advantages. Not everything about it was great, but it was still a really great movie. This feels like an early case of a visual album. This really wasn't much of a story going on here, a flowing narrative. It was just various compilations and sketches, and then not until the second half of the film does an actual story come into play here. But for the most part, it's a fun movie to watch. It's because the stuff that they have there is really fun to watch. There's that great compilation showing Jackson's career from the Jackson 5 to where he was, having just done The Way You Make Me Feel. I mean, then you get the weird stuff, like a Michael Jackson bad version, except it's with kids, because I guess this was still around the time everybody was doing babified and kidified versions. So Jackson said, let's do that with bad. And it's okay for what it is. And then you get the weirdness with Speed Demon with a great music, with a great claymation by Will Vinton. It's bizarre, hilarious, stylized as all hell. We get the music video for Leave Me Alone, which is a trip on its own right. And then we get the actual movie. And each of these segments range from really weird to... I was never bored by the movie. I love how incredible the set pieces are here, and was laughing at how over-the-top and silly it gets, especially with the Smooth Criminal segment. The flashbacks alone are hilarious, over-the-top cheese. Joe Pesci's just having the time of his life playing the antagonist in here. And even in the end, when Jackson literally turns into a robot, then a starship to save the day, it's ridiculous, it's stupid, but it's also kind of badass at the same time. I mean, this is an unbelievable trip of a movie. I mean, this movie does not make a whole lot of sense at all, but I'll be goddamn, I wasn't having the time of my life. This is an incredible movie. It's kind of like the 80s equivalent to Space Jam. A movie that's obviously not very good, but has so much charm and silly over-the-top madness to it that you can't help but watch and have a great time to do so. It's a guilty pleasure movie, and I think it has a lot to really like about it, weirdness and all. It's a perfect example of an 80s movie trip, a movie that is so weird and so ridiculous with the ideas of what they wanted to do, and you end up having the time of your life watching it under the right circumstances. The effort clearly is being put in there, and it's a shame that this has not gotten a proper release, but hopefully someday somebody will find this movie and put it out in some form, whether it has to be through Shout Factory, if Warner Brothers finally gets the rights, if the Jackson estate puts it out, put it out for the new Michael Jackson movie. I mean, people deserve to see this movie in its full craziness. I mean, if you love Michael Jackson's work, then you're going to love the hell out of Moonwalker. It's so much good, so much ridiculously bad. You're going to have the time of your life watching this. It's a classic, cheesy 80s movie, and I loved every minute of it. So there you go. That is all the big new releases from 1988 that I wanted to cover. And we get a couple weeks off because we'll be back on Friday, August 30th to delve into the movies of 1987. And depending on how long it takes to get to those movies, it will depend on which movies I actually find on the list here. Because I go to Box Office Mojo and I go to Wikipedia to find the movies I'm looking for. So we will see what happens. So we get a couple of weeks before we have to move into those. But thank you guys so much for joining me on this journey through 1988 as a whole. If you want to go ahead and see some of the other episodes I've done, go ahead and check out the playlist coming up on the next page, as well as check out the previous episode. And I will see you guys in a couple of weeks for the start of 1987. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. So until then, take care.